What's up, everybody? It's Rossette from Rossette Glass, and I'm back with another episode. We're gonna talk about glass. And you know where a lot of people are weak is welds. So today, we're gonna get into welds. We're gonna talk about everything. Now look, the first weld that I recommend you practice would be to get a rod and another rod and weld these rods together, clear. Weld them together right here, and what you want is a perfect rod, close to perfect, at the end. You don't want to be able to see where the weld happened. You don't want to see like bubbles and a little bit of, right, stuff. No, you want to see perfect, uniform weld. And the way you're going to achieve that is going to be through practice. But I'm here to help you guys. So look, it's all going to come down to temperature. It's all gonna come down to getting this really hot and this really hot. And when they marry, they're gonna have to be molten. Not close to molten, but molten. But if you burn it, then you're gonna have bubbles. So you don't, that's the trick. You want it to get really hot and molten, but don't burn these edges. And these edges are prone to burning. And if it boils, that's what I'm talking about. You'll see these amateur welds with bubbles. And so what you're gonna wanna do is learn this. And once they're hot and you've connected them, then you roll it on the marver. And so when I smash them together, let's say I have two rods and I'm pushing them together. They're molten, they're gonna kind of like, the glass is gonna like push together here. It's gonna Maria a little bit, and then you Maria it together and pull it apart just a little, right? So you guys know what a Maria is, and that's when you're pushing these. You know what I'm talking about? You're pushing. You're getting these Marias. So, but you don't go to a full Maria. It's just a little bit of a push to guarantee the weld, and then you pull apart. And when you pull apart, so you're gonna thicken it, right? And then when you stretch, you're shooting for uniform. So you're gonna thicken it, and then you're gonna marver and stretch it apart, looking for this, and that's how you're gonna get the perfect uniform diameter. So I hope you guys understand what I'm talking about when I say push together a little bit and then pull apart, and then as you're marvering it, and it should smash all together perfectly. And keep it perfectly level as you're rolling it. It'll turn out great. And do it a bunch of times because this is key. This is fundamental. It's not going away. Everything is built off of this, understanding this. Actually, the more advanced you get, the less you have to nail the weld the first try. But you need to understand this. The more advanced you get, let's say I'm making a sculpture and I'm gonna put, let's say there's legs, right? And I'm gonna put arms, I have arms. And now I need to marry the arm to the body. This is the same technique here, it's just higher, the stakes are higher because the cracks, it can crack all the way down here, right? So this has to be super hot, you connect them. And what I meant by having a little bit more leeway on the advanced techniques is what you would do normally is you would connect the arm and then you would bring a mini torch and you would guarantee that spot. You would guarantee the weld all the way around. Boom. A lot of times, and a lot of glass blowers can nail it. They can nail it on their first try, just nail the weld. And if you can build that skill, it's gonna save you time and energy, and your work is gonna come out better. But don't worry, because you could always hit it with the mini torch. So every time I assemble a complex piece, I hit it with the mini torch. You guys didn't see it on my elephant video, but a lot of times I'll hit the ears or different pieces with the mini torch just to guarantee the weld. But I know if I don't have a mini torch, I know how to weld, and I can make the weld happen the first try. So don't buy a mini torch to skip over learning the skill. Get the mini torch and learn the skill, right? Okay, let's move on. So that's important. But another important thing, which is the exact same thing, just a little bit harder, is trying the same weld with tubes. So this is a tube, this is a tube. So what I have to say about this is a little bit more difficult is your diameters, right? So let's say you're gonna join, after you've done a bunch of rods and you've welded them together, start connecting tubes. Get some 12 mil scrap and start connecting tubes. It's the same thing, it's just a little bit harder because you're gonna involve, one end's gonna be plugged, right? And you're gonna be blowing on this end, right? So you're gonna marry them together, you're gonna get them really hot. This is the secret. Get both of them really hot, marry them together, like I said, push a little bit, pull apart, and you're marvering it till it's perfect, but this is the difference. You're gonna be blowing too. So if you have a hose set up, you'll have the hose to your mouth and you'll be blowing. If you don't have a hose set up, which, you know, whatever, everybody has different techniques, you can just blow it, marver it until it's uniform. And that technique, understanding that is gonna because what I realized is if you don't understand how to do this, then you're not gonna be able to assemble pieces, because assembling, let's say I have a vase, right? Let's say I have a vase right here and I have a punty here. Let's say I have a neck here and it's connected to a punty here. In order to marry this to this, you need to have this skill. In order to marry this punty to this piece, and in order to marry this to this, because a lot of times you're gonna start with a vase like this, then you're gonna pop a hole here, you're gonna put a punty, you're gonna terminate here, and so you need to know how to weld, because you have to know how to rely on this punty. And you're gonna be switching punties so often during assembly, you have to know this. It's crucial. Because I got into some complex sculptures before my welding was like on point, and it just caused me so many problems because you end up with cracks in these places when you're working on other stuff. And it's because your welds are wobbly and janky on the edges. Always take your time with those welds, and it's worthwhile to do a lot of practicing here. It's gonna save you money and heartache later, I promise you. And this is what I have to say about how this works. So when you're heating up the tubes, right, they're shrinking. The hotter they get, the diameter of this tube is shrinking. So what the goal is to get them hot, you see them moving, kiss them, pull them, and blow. It's the blow that keeps it from totally like shrink. You don't want the tube to shrink in, and it can easily get too hot and shrink together. So you have to understand the heat control, and you have to understand timing is everything. When is it perfect? When is it too hot? And when is it perfect? Boom. And then you blow. And that's how you're gonna get these welds right here to really just come out perfect. And so let's say your tube welded and you have like a line here, that means you didn't weld good enough. Because a good weld, the line will disappear. I hope you understand what I'm saying. When you're there in the torch, I think you'll understand what I'm saying. And so that's a butt sill, which is super like common. It's probably one of the most common sills. And I know a lot of glass blowers who are weak at this butt sill, and I just don't understand why they don't just take the time to strengthen their weaknesses, because it's so much heartache trying to go around the butt sill. Okay. So now, let's talk about the ring sill. This is a little bit more advanced, but this is good for you guys who love to make rigs. I love to make rigs. Let's talk about the ring sill. So let's say I have a piece, and it's a vase, it's a mini, whatever, and we're going to pop a hole here, and we're gonna drop a down stem in there, okay? So the way that you're gonna pop the hole, first and foremost, is you're gonna hit it with the heat. Let me show you. You'll hit it with the heat here. And then you'll blow a little bit, it'll start to bulge, right? You'll choose your spot in it and then bulge it out a little. So what you're doing is you're thinning it out a little bit. And then you're gonna take a rod. You're gonna take your rod and you're gonna touch it here, and you're gonna just pull some of that excess. Just pull some of the excess. So you're gonna push your rod into here and just kind of spin your rod and pull it out. And that's just gonna take away some excess glass, because after that happens, after you take away the excess glass, when you blow it open, it'll naturally open into a hole. instead of you having to ream it open, and there'll be extra glass on the edges, which adds to the cracks. So this is crucial. Once you've removed some glass, it'll want to open up because there'll be less glass, right? At this point, you'll have a perfect hole. You can ream it a little bit bigger. I always recommend going bigger than what you think. Like, you'll think that's good enough, go a little bit bigger than what you think. That's what my recommendation is, because you don't want, the last thing you want is on the next spot. The last thing you want is the downstem to kiss one of these edges. So over here, you've got a downstem. I'll draw the downstem. Okay, you're gonna put the downstem in here, right? Your downstem will have holes or whatever. Up here is where the magic will happen. The downstem will have a Maria pushed into it like this. A lot of times my let's just talk about the downstem, because there's other ways to approach it, but this is just one way. So when you're but what I'm talking about is the ring sill. So this ring, this Maria, so you have your downstem, right? And you push a Maria into it. But you want to measure the perfect length to the for the downstem and the Maria, right? So this may take a few tries of like measuring the downstem. Oh, it's too long. Oh, it's whatever. So take your time with that, because you want your downstem to be perfect. It's going to affect the function. If the downstem is too high, then the water level will be high, and that's going to add to the splash, and it's just not going to function well. You want your downstem way down here. You want the bubbles coming out way down here at the bottom, but not touching. So the ring sill, what you're going to do is it's kind of like looking at it like this. Let's say there's a tube. You're dropping your downstem, and here's the ring. It touches the out of the side of the tube, and this is where you're gonna add the heat, right? And this is how you're gonna sill it. You're gonna add the heat all the way around the tube, right? All the way around, and this will look something kind of more round, like, yeah. So that's why it's called a ring sill, and you're gonna sill all the way around the ring, and that should end you up with a nice, beautiful, because you know how to weld, a nice, beautiful downstem, perfectly ring sealed in, and now you're ready for you might even have let's say a female piece on the end of this, or a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make a piece with a 90 degree coming out like this. So it all depends what you want to do. A lot of my pieces maybe have bent necks, and so maybe coming out looking more like that. And so, but whatever style you want to do, all of them involve the ring sill. It's just crucial. And the ring sill, man, if you get good at ring sills, that's gonna lend itself to so many applications. This is gonna make you so much money. And yeah, so that's how I make rigs. I think that might be the only way to make rigs. There's other ways actually, but that's my favorite way, is the ring sill. That's made me a lot of money. Let's talk about the Jesus sill. So this is a really advanced one, but a lot of people are always asking about the Jesus sill. So let's just talk about it. I just learned about it when I started making recyclers. This is advanced stuff, but I think since we're talking about sills, we might as well mention the Jesus sill. Now, what's the Jesus sill? So, okay, this is how you practice Jesus sills. You have a tube, 12 mil, right? Wow. You have a 12 mil, and you bend it over like this. And this is a good way to practice bending tubes as well, because that's particularly difficult. So, okay, let me just talk about bending tubes real quick. So let's say you have a tube. Let's say you add heat here and you bend. What you're gonna get is like a crease, like this. And it's not gonna be exactly it's not gonna be this. The way to get this is to add heat here, and this is how I do it. So I'm holding my piece, and I'm gonna use gravity. I'm gonna add heat here, and it's gonna start to bend slightly. It's gonna slightly start to bend. Then I'm gonna move my heat here, and it's gonna bend even more. Then I'm gonna move my heat here. And as these cool, it'll start to bend more uniform than if you just heat it in one place and try and bend it. A lot of people use ribbon burners. A lot of neon sign glass blowers are good at getting those bends. They use ribbon burners, which is a long burner. A ribbon burner is a long burner with a lot of flames. Looks something like this. And you can spin your tube above it, and then you get a good bend. And that's how those neon sign workers get good bends. I don't know a lot of people with ribbon burners, but if you did a lot of bending, that's how you could do it. So anyway, you have a tube like this. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a piece of, this is gonna be a rod. You're gonna weld it here. And what's gonna happen is when you apply heat, you're gonna pop a hole here and pop a hole here. You're gonna apply heat to the middle. Your flame will be going right here in the middle, and you're gonna be pushing these two holes. You're gonna be blowing them closer and closer to each other, and they're gonna be getting thinner and thinner. At a certain point, the holes will touch. This is kind of difficult to do without popping holes in it. But at a certain point, the holes will touch, but it'll be closed here. And so what a Jesus seal is when you get these two to touch, you add heat here, and you keep blowing this. And you blow it open, and as it opens up, and this is crucial, this first stage right here where you're blowing them, it's thinning. These are super thin. By the time that they touch, they're thin. And what happens when you try and blow them out, it actually pops open, and you get a sill that looks like this. And you might have seen, so that's a Jesus sill, when you can pop that open. And the way that they use those is on recyclers. You'll have a piece, then you'll have a base. The uptake will be Jesus silled usually onto here. So that's the application, and it's kind of advanced, but definitely I know most of you are here so that you can learn and become advanced. So you guys, if you have any questions, make sure to comment on below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you guys for watching. I will have more videos for you soon. See you next time.